one more formula now.
That's right.
That's your
Blood cleansing formula.
Tell us what you've done with Doctor's basic formula.
I call it the regeneration tonic, and it's divided into two categories. It's all in one tonic, but half of it is immune stimulators and immune boosters, and the other half is blood cleansers.
Okay.
And of course, blood cleansers are very famous for working with people with cancer and all types of degenerative disease. We could look at all the famous formulas from Dr. Christopher's red clover combination to the Hoxie formula on down.
Now, is this the same what you're doing? The same?
Well, it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's a little bit different. Unfortunately, I can only suggest that people use this tonic in their bath water. I would suggest 2 dropperfuls of the tonic 5 times a day added to their bath, because these herbs can no longer be used for internal consumption according to the FDA, many of the plants in this formula. So I don't suggest that people use it internally, they just put it in their bath water.
Okay, of course, I as an editor can tell people to do what they want with it. You were telling me about the red clover combination.
Yes.
And you said Dr. Christopher was using herbs for killing cancer in that combination, but they're not in that formula today as it is sold.
Pokroot is a classic example. Pokroot, according to the FDA, can no longer be used for internal consumption, but Pokroot's one of our greatest herbs for cancer. In fact, I'll talk some stories later when we talk about breast cancer.
Okay.
Pokroot's is specific for breast cancer. You can't leave it out of this formula.
Well, let's stop for a minute and just let's show what Pokroot is, because it's not some exotic plant.
Absolutely. In fact, we took a nice little walk this morning for our morning exercise, and we found some Pokroot growing right here. It's a very common weed, we'll call it, throughout the eastern coast all the way to the deep south. In fact, in the south, they eat the young leaves in salads. But it's very common. It has a conical shaped flower. This is a little of the leftover flower. It has white petals on it, but as it matures, we're later in the season now here, the berries turn green and then turn purple. And with this plant, you can use the entire plant, but the major
What are we using, Richard?
The root. This is
we're using the root, not the berry or not the stalk.
The root. And this is what we use of the plant. But it's a very potent plant. Now, the FDA says it's toxic.
They say it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Is that
true?
true?
It's poisonous.
Is that true?
No. And the reason is as an herbalist, I look at every plant in nature, and I know there's a reason for every plant existing out there. There's no plants created to hurt us or harm us. Everything has a purpose. I know that. And so, but some of these plants are stronger, so they have to be used with more caution, and Pokroot is one of those. Smaller dosages, a little bit goes a long way. And most of these herbs will talk to you and tell you that because they're very bitter or very acrid. They, you know, when you taste a raspberry, your mouth and your mind says, I want another one.
Right.
When you eat a Pacific deadly nightshade berry, your mouth and your mind say, I don't want that anymore. Nature talks to you.
Are there any other herbs that are now being omitted from Dr. Christopher's anti-cancer formula?
Yeah, unfortunately for many peoples, a lot of these herbs are so powerful and so potent, certainly it isn't in the best interest of the pharmaceutical industry to have them available to the public.
So how do they solve the problem?
They make them illegal for us to use. Okay. They take them out of the health food stores. They take them away from us.
Why does Chaparral help fight or kill cancer?
Chaparral has chemicals in it that are very strong antioxidants. And what that means is that these antioxidants will actually destroy tumors. They'll destroy tumors in your body, whether they're benign or malignant. In fact, the American Indians used it to destroy tumors. And on top of that, Merck's Index, which is the standard chemical book in the United States, says that Chaparral, the chemicals in Chaparral, are one of the strongest antioxidants found in nature. And so immediately when this came out, I find it very interesting that the FDA has decided that we shouldn't use Chaparral and really trumped up a couple false charges against it. Because I personally have patients that not only they've been drinking Chaparral tea for years, but their parents and their grandparents have been drinking it. I have one patient who is an assistant district attorney in Los Angeles that drinks Chaparral tea 3 cups a day, and his father drank it and his grandfather drank it, and nobody's ever had a liver problem. It's a very common plant. It's not for everybody because it tastes a bit bitter for general use, but in a blood cleansing detox formula, it's what I would say the #2 herb. It's one of the greatest. If you look at everybody's blood cleansing formula, from Dr. Christopher's to Jason Winter's herbal tea to the Hoxie formula and down, everybody has red clover. And when I asked Dr. Christopher about red clover, it was the only herb that he looked me straight in the eye and he said, anti-cancer. He says that herb will take cancer out of the body. And it will. We found some red clover growing right up the trail here.
Okay.
It grows everywhere almost. The Latin name is Trifolium pratense, and trifolium for the 3 leaves. Let's see if I can find a good example here. It has 3 leaves, very easy to recognize. Most people know red clover.
And why is it so special? Well, he said anti-cancer. Why?
Absolutely. Well, one reason is it contains an acid called coumaric acid, and that thins your blood. It actually stops your red blood cells from sticking together, or what sometimes is called platelet aggregation, and it thins your blood.
Isn't that dangerous to thin your blood?
No, absolutely not. Most people's blood is about as thick as molasses because of the amount of saturated fat and cholesterol levels of 200 and up, and their blood is too thick. And one of the problems with any degenerative disease is you can't get the blood to the area that's hurting, or the area that's diseased, or the area where you have cancer. So by thinning your blood, you get all the power of these herbs to that area. You stand a much greater chance of recovery.
So they're not going to bleed internally because they took an herb that thinned the blood, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is, you can drink all the red clover tea you want without any problems. It just does it in a nice, mild way. But not to be underestimated, because every cancer formula I've ever looked at that has a history of working well has red clover in it. In our formula, we put a lot of red clover.
More than was in his original formula, maybe?
Yes, we do. We put more in because red clover, I like to concentrate it. Its potency can be limited, so we concentrate it down and concentrate it down and concentrate it down to put it in our formula.
You mentioned another herb to me that you said was in his original red clover anti-cancer formula, and it's Lobelia that's not in there anymore.
That's right.
How does that help fight cancer?
Well, Lobelia is what Dr. Christopher called the thinking herb. In fact, it's one of the greatest antispasmodics. It relaxes your body, and more can be done in your body when your body isn't tense.
But how does that help fight cancer?
Well, it again helps your blood circulation, and that's a real key, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, about stimulating that blood circulation, because one of the things, we could talk about a basic theory right now, but your body doesn't get sick in an area if the circulation is good there. Now I'm talking about blood flow, nerve flow, lymphatic flow, the emotions to that area. If everything is flow, the Chinese call it qi, the Japanese call it ki, the Indians call it prana. You can call it anything you want, but we must have a vital energy flow to all areas of our body. And when an area of our body is sick or diseased, the one thing I know is that the vital energy, whether it be the blood, the nerves, the lymph, whatever, is cut off to that area. So one of the greatest healing parts of the Incurables program, and we'll talk a little more about that when we get into circulation, is stimulating the blood flow to that area.
You told me that Echinacea is one of the parts of your expanded red clover combination. What's so special about that? Because frankly, everybody uses Echinacea today.
Echinacea is an herb that probably only grows in the United States naturally, but now it's grown all over the world. It is considered the greatest immune stimulant today. In fact, almost every aspect of your immune system is enhanced by the usage of Echinacea. It will stimulate more T-cell production. It will stimulate more macrophage production. It'll stimulate more interferon, more interleukin. It's amazing at what this plant does.
But are people getting what they think with?
Unfortunately not. 90% of the Echinacea that's harvested in the United States is sent overseas to Germany. They even use it intravenously over there as an immune drug.
It's that strong.
Yeah, in this country, Echinacea has a very wonderful side effect. It makes your mouth numb and tingly. And 90% of the Echinacea formulas that I sample in the health food store don't do that.
Why not?
There's no Echinacea in them. That's my guess. That's my best guess, is there's nothing in them. Because every type of Echinacea that I sample, the leaves, the flowers, the roots, even the species of Echinacea,
It doesn't matter. Huh?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They all have that sensation. It's just like golden seal is a very bitter herb, one of the most bitter. If your golden seal tonic isn't bitter, it's not golden seal. If your licorice isn't sweet, it's not licorice. If your cayenne isn't hot, it's not cayenne. And so many of the herbal products on the market, I take them, I can't taste or detect any of the herbs that are supposed to be in them.
Well, where do you get your Echinacea from?
I get my Echinacea picked fresh in the Midwest and shipped to me into California, UPS next day air. And they soak it and wrap it in wet burlap so it doesn't dry out. When we get it to California, we immediately immerse it in a solution and run it through a champion juicer. We actually juice the Echinacea roots, and that makes a big difference. And you've tasted my tincture, you know.
It gets worse by the minute.
Yeah, it's very strong. And so, you know, this goes back to that classic, why don't herbs work? They don't work because the people either are getting very poor products or they're not even getting the herb at all. It's estimated that over half of the ginseng preparations on the market don't contain any ginseng at all. It's one of the most highly adulterated herbs going today.
Now we've covered all the basic formulas.
That's right.
Now a little advice, how to use them. You obviously can't drink them one after another.
That's right.
What do you do?
The first step is starting with that bowel. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but do the home colonic program, the intestinal formula number 1 and the intestinal formula number 2. That's what you want to get into. While you're doing that, you can also do, at the same time, your liver gallbladder formula, the liver flush, and the detox tea. Now, we're talking incurables here.
Right.
Okay, we're talking about someone that needs to get well.
We're not talking about wellness. We're not talking about fitness.
No, not at all. We're talking about someone who was supposed to be dead last week or last month or last year. They don't have any time to waste.
How much space between the teas? Minutes, hours, whatever.
Yeah, basically the detox tea you're using only after the liver flush in the morning. So you're doing the intestinal number 1, which is the capsules with dinner, the intestinal number 2 5 times a day. You're using a heaping teaspoon 5 times a day of the intestinal number 2. You're doing a liver flush every morning. You're doing the detox tea afterwards, and you're using the liver gallbladder formula 5 times a day, also 2 dropperfuls 5 times a day.
How much space between that and let's say the colon formula? 15 minutes?
Yeah, just try to keep some space between all these. And that's the biggest question that people ask. They're doing so many things. I know that the Incurables program that I'm setting up here is an absolute full-time job with overtime. Okay?
In other words, they can't get much else done.
There's nothing. Quit your job. You can't go to work. You know, I mean, this is something.
It sounds like a lot of stuff.
Most programs that people do, I design them to where they can do it at work. But let's face it, this is the Incurables program. You're dying or supposed to be dead. We can't fool around. We can't fool around at all.
You don't have time to hold down a job.
No, I'm giving you an 18-hour-a-day job right now. If you want to get yourself well naturally, this is what this tape is about. This is what we're talking about. It's a full-time job.
What kind of experiences have you had in treating and curing breast cancer?
I've had hundreds of women come to me with breast cancer that have healed themselves using only natural methods.
But you're talking early cases, right?
No. I've had some of the worst cases I've seen, advanced cases. I had one young lady come to me, 23 years old. She was diagnosed with a malignant breast tumor in her left breast. She visited 3 different physicians that all said a radical mastectomy because it had gone into her lymphatic system. She was considering having that surgery within a couple days from when I saw her, and I had to sit her down and have a good talk with her. I mean, the doctors said it was a simple surgery, but one thing that I've learned is there's no such thing as a simple surgery.
What do you mean, no such thing?
Well, the repercussions are dramatic, are horrifying, are life-changing. Some of these people even kill themselves afterwards.
What'd you tell her?
I told her that. I said, you know, you're 23 years old. Are you married? She said, no. I said, what do you think it's going to be like finding a man? Do you think he's going to accept you with one breast and a scar across your chest?
But isn't that kind of brutal? Tell her that?
Yeah, it is. I wanted her to cry in my office. I wanted to scare her so much and put so much fear into her that she would never consider having this type of procedure. I said, look, we live in Southern California. You're going to go to the beach in a swimming suit. How's that going to look? I said, this could ruin your life. I said, let's give it a shot. You know, what are we talking about? Doctors use fear to sell their medicine, their drugs, their surgery, their radiation. They tell people you don't have any time to waste, and it's not true.
So what happened? You talked to her?
Absolutely. I told her exactly what we wanted to do, and in 5 days, her tumor, she went back to the doctor, was 50% reduced in size, and in 10 days, it was absolutely gone, undetectable.
And I can guess he said it was a remission.
Yeah, he said it was a miracle. They even went as far as one doctor said, well, maybe I had a misdiagnosis. And she says, I have 2 other physician statements here. You know, the minute it goes away, doctors want to assume that they've either misdiagnosed it or it was, you know, a spontaneous remission. But the bottom line is there's thousands of women out there with breast cancer who'd healed themselves using natural methods. Her tumor was deep inside. You could feel it, but it hadn't come out through the skin at all. And she was 23 years old, had a strong immune system, but we did everything. Some specifics are a lot of arm exercise, swimming.
What do you mean when you did like this?
Yeah, I told her swim. You know, all the lymphatic ducts are right under here. Those lymphatic ducts get clogged, and then we can't get the white blood cells to the breast to eat up the cancer, and we can't get the waste out of the breast. The lymphatic system here is the sewage system for the breast, similar that the colon is for the rest of our body. And so I told her to swim 50 laps 3 times a day.
A cancer patient can do that?
Absolutely. I said, get in that pool and swim. I had her do the hot and colds, but I had her doing deep massage. She said it was hurting, and I said, go deeper.
You had her press with her hands.
That's
hard,
right.
deep.
Press into that
into
breast.
the tumor.
Absolutely. Deep massage until it was hurting and she was had pain and she was crying. I had her juice fast. She went right to juice fasting, got off all foods, went right to juices. I had her doing poultices externally just to stimulate that area, and we'll talk about a breast cancer poultice in a minute.
Okay.
But she did everything. She was working 18 hours a day, and she beat all the odds. She healed herself, and she's never had a problem since.
And that was how big a tumor or how bad a tumor?
The tumor was about silver dollar size.
That's big.
And it was malignant, and 3 doctors suggested that she at least remove the breast, if not all the lymph tissue and muscle right under her arm.
Any other cases that
Absolutely.
really is striking as hers? She's not an exception, is she?
No, but a lot of people might think, well, she was 23 years old. She's at the peak of health. I've had a 75-year-old woman come to me with the worst breast cancer I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, what do you mean the worst?
She had a tumor on her breast that was at least 6 inches across. It looked like a donut. It was this thick on the wall. There were black hairs growing out of the tumor, and I've seen this many times. There was a hole in the center that was so deep it went right to her ribs, and there was blood and pus leaking out it continuously.
How did the tumor, what is it like on the back of a tumor? Does it attach itself to the body?
Yeah, many times on the back of a tumor, you see like tentacles, little legs that actually go in and attach themselves to the rest of the body and hold on. And so we had to do some immediate work with her. And at 75 years old, her immune system isn't that of a 23-year-old.
No way.
And she had been through drugs, and she had had cancer before, and she had had a very unhealthy life. And of course, the doctors wanted to not only cut off her breast, but put her on chemo, put her on radiation to make sure that no further cancer spread throughout her body. And personally, I know that would have killed her. That would have killed her. She didn't have the strength to go through chemotherapy, radiation,
at that age.
maybe even to go through surgery. No. And so she was already sick and tired of being sick and tired. She had many relatives that had died in the doctor's hands. She had 7 relatives that had died of cancer in the doctor's hands, burnt to a crisp with radiation, poisoned with chemotherapy, and the last month of their lives they lied in bed screaming. And she would do anything but work with the doctors anymore. She had had it. And I said, let's go to work.
So what did you do?
Garlic is one of our greatest anti-cancer herbs.
But wait a minute. Garlic, is that just, you have that on salad? You're talking about garlic and cancer in the same breath.
And the only reason we don't know about garlic, again, is the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want us to know the power of garlic. In many countries around the world, garlic is a specific pharmaceutical drug and remedy for everything from high blood pressure and hypercholesterolemia all the way down to cancer. Garlic's been proven in medical industries in this country to destroy cancer tumors, period.
So you consider it an anti-tumor herb.
Absolutely, and it's something that everybody has in their local grocery store.
So what did you do in her case?
Okay, well, one of the things that you can do is you have to have a blender. If you don't have a blender, just chop it up and mash it up. But get that garlic into a paste. Now, garlic burns. Remember that. Garlic has 75 sulfur compounds in it, and these are what do the healing. Sulfur is a great healer, but one of them is sulfuric acid, and sulfuric acid burns the skin. And this is great. This is a wonderful, this is nature's surgical tool. You put it on a tumor and it'll burn that tumor and it'll burn the skin around it.
How did you do? What's the details?
I like to put garlic and I put it in a blender and blend it up into a paste.
How much?
You can put a good handful of cloves right into that blender. Yeah, peel those cloves and put them right in the blender.
All right, so it makes a little bit of mash.
That's right, and a bulb of garlic is the whole bulb with many cloves.
Right.
But, you know, peel that whole bulb of garlic, put all those cloves in. I like slippery elm. Slippery elm is a great detoxifier, but it also holds everything together.
So you use it like a glue?
That's right. Slippery elm is the greatest poultice base.
So do you put water in or just slippery elm?
Yes, I like vinegar too. Vinegar and water. Raw apple cider vinegar.
Half-half?
Yeah, it's great for the skin and distilled water. That's right, 50-50 on that.
And a little slippery elm.
And a little slippery elm, a handful of garlic, and if you have some fresh Pokroot, that's wonderful, but even dried or Pokroot extract will work. It's a specific for the lymphatic system, cleaning the lymph glands.
How much of that do you put in?
And the cancer. Whatever you can get, but another handful. I'm making this real simple because it
Richard,
doesn't
you
have
know
to
what's
be
growing
technical.
around here. So if somebody had some, you pull it out by the
pull
ground.
It up. And
it has a root. How big's the root?
It has a root, and it's quite big, and it'll fight you to get out of the ground. But use some rubber gloves because it's such a strong plant, or some garden gloves, because some people just handling the root too much can get a reaction. It's a powerful plant.
No kidding.
It will also burn the skin. It's acrid. So you want to grate that Pokroot up and put that in the poultice too.
You got a thick paste.
Yeah, you smother it around the tumor, and don't be afraid to stick it inside and smother it around that tumor.
If there's an ulceration, you're not going to cause infection.
No, absolutely not. And if it's bleeding too much, if you put the poultice on and so much blood is coming out that it keeps pushing the poultice off, put some cayenne on first.
But doesn't that sting like crazy?
No. My experience is that cayenne pepper on open wounds doesn't burn. Garlic is a little bit intense, okay? So this is a little bit intense, but breathe and bear with it, and after a while you'll get used to it.
How long do you leave it on?
All night long. Put it on at night, leave it on all night long. When in the morning, don't clean it off, just get in that shower. You're going to do your hot and cold shower routine and use that to take this poultice off and clean this poultice off. And then you can put another one on the next day. You can put another one on the next night.
In other words, you don't have to wait till the next evening in a severe case.
No, no, no. In a severe case, after your hot and cold shower, I'd let some nice air get to that tumor, let it breathe a little bit. And these tumors stink. Anybody that has these know. When these people come into my office, I can smell them a block away. There's nothing more horrible than the stench of rotting flesh and cancer and tumors. And we have to burn incense before and after. So I'm telling these people, don't be afraid to burn a little herbs in your house or spray some essential oils. Yeah, just to make you feel a little bit better about this. And then don't be afraid of that tumor. As long as you're doing an aggressive program, I call it aggressive purification, you're going to get rid of it.
Okay, now, you put it on, you leave it on as much as necessary. How many days before you see? What are you looking for? What's supposed to happen?
It'll actually come off. The tumor will dry up.
But it's inside the breast.
Well, the one we're talking about right now is one that is actually external. It's burst right through the skin.
Before it ever got to you.
Oh, yeah. You can't even recognize that that's a breast anymore. It just looks like fleshy parts. Okay.
So what happens? What does the poultice do that you know it's doing something?
Okay, the first thing it does is it kills that cancer. It directly kills the tumor. Garlic has been proven to not only destroy bacteria, virus, fungus, but it destroys cancer tumors. It'll burn them up. It'll get them off. It's the greatest. And you'll notice that that tumor will bleed some. That's okay. You'll notice that that tumor will start to pull away and pull off. And eventually, with a little tugging and a little pulling, it'll come right off the breast. Now, you're going to have a hole there, and now you need to go into some healing types of poultices. Aloe vera, slippery elm, comfrey, you know, the healing poultices.
And we'll get into those later.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But now, there are other types of tumors, aren't there? In other cases you've had, that could be internal.
That's right.
They're not anywhere near the surface.
That's right. And we still use the external remedies, but with most people with those, the tumor will shrink and go back through their lymphatic system and their bloodstream and out.
So this poultice goes inside the skin?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely penetrates. You can step on a garlic clove and smell garlic on your breath. You know, my wife eats garlic, nurses the baby, and I smell it on the baby's body and on his breath. Okay, garlic goes through the system like you can't believe, and just by putting it on the skin, it goes through the whole body.
So internally, you palpate it, the tumor is getting smaller?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, how does this take, a month, 2 months?
It depends on the person, and it depends, you know, I always say a person's results on this procedure are dramatically balanced and equaled and reflected by the amount of work they're putting into it. If they're putting in an 18-hour-a-day program, if they're doing all the things we talk about,
then what can you
not
expect?
Just about these specifics, you can expect a miracle, what doctors will call a miracle.
You can almost expect it.
Absolutely, like I had with my heart, like I had with my hand. Don't ever forget, the body's main function is survival, to repair you and survive. That's what your body wants to do. But I had this one woman that was in the entertainment business, and this is a classic story that a lot of the viewers will relate to. She had a tumor in one breast. It came out through the skin. She was horrified. They cut off her breast. Now, this is a young entertainment person, and of course that could have ruined her career. A few years later, she had cancer in the other breast. Horrified. She let the tumor go because she didn't want to have the breast cut off, and it almost killed her. They cut that breast off. But 5 years later, she developed uterine cancer, and now they said it might be too late. We need to do chemotherapy. She agreed. She had one shot of chemotherapy, and she said that when it entered her vein, she felt as though she had been run over by a train. She said it was the worst feeling she had in her life, and God told her right then and there, this is not the way for you. And that's when I first saw her. I usually don't see people on the, to check up their health. I mean, I don't get people that are fit that want to get a little fitter.
She comes to you. When she came to you, did she really have any hope? Because I was her, I wouldn't.
Yeah, the doctors had pretty much drained all her hope out of her. But sitting down and talking with her, I mean, a big part of my job is to let these people know that there are thousands of people out there that have healed themselves of these diseases.
You don't mean 2 or 3 or 5 people.
No, thousands. Thousands all over the world. I have 1,000 practicing students all over the world, and they're having thousands of these cases happen to them.
So a woman doesn't have to worry about being a fluke. It can happen.
Oh, so many people, when they get this ill,
right,
they think nobody else is this ill. They think they're the only ones.
You've never had anybody as bad as me.
No, that's what they always think. And this woman thought this too. She thought she was dead, and I said, no, look, and you know what? She was a great patient. Everybody's looking for a good doctor, but I'm looking for great patients. She was a great patient. She did everything I said. And this was 15 years ago, and she's been cancer-free ever since.
And the uterus, too. It's all gone.
Oh, it's all gone. So just because, you have had cancer in the past and you've had the relatives die of cancer, nothing in the past matters. Forget the past. It's what you do today.
Any other advice you want to give while we're talking about breast cancer? These women have got to do at home.
Yeah, don't get mammograms, okay? Who needs more radiation? In fact, stay away
But isn't
from...
that a risk if they don't?
Not at all.
Jeopardize?
In fact...
You know, any doctor, if he heard this, he'd flip over.
Oh, yeah. In fact, the rate of breast cancer has gone up dramatically since the usage of mammograms. Doctors know mammograms even cause cancer. I have patients whose husbands or wives are medical doctors, and they even tell them, well, don't get a mammogram. It's a cancer risk.
So how's a woman supposed to protect herself if she can't get a mammogram?
Don't get a mammogram. You know, there's been people in this country that have developed easy ways to tell if you have breast lumps, and they've all been thrown in jail, so it's tough. But the key is most of the procedures to diagnose diseases can cause worse diseases. So stay away from the doctors, stay away from the
hospitals. Okay, let's say they've got it. Well, you talked about the poultice. What else?
Remember stimulating that lymphatic system. Yeah, hot and cold showers directly on the area. And while you're doing those hot and cold, I want you to massage that whole breast and massage under that arm. And if you feel any lumps or bumps, push on them.
Do they ever
knead
feel
them.
hard knobs?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
How bad are they?
Some very bad, some like marbles, hard as granite.
Now, what is that?
It's the lymphatic glands stuffed, stuck, and full. They're filled with pus and bacteria and cancer.
Well, how do you know they're filled with pus?
Oh, because this is why the doctors cut them out. They cut them out because they even have cancer in them.
Oh, so when they cut them out and cut them open, that's what they see?
Yeah, and now that's great. Now if they cut out your lymphatic glands, you don't have a sewer system anymore.
So then what happens?
Then when you get cancer the next time, there's no chance that your body can heal itself naturally.
Okay, so you do that rubbing, you do the swimming as
Absolutely.
much as they can.
Absolutely,
Or
and if you can't swim, stand up and do arm rotations. Deep breathing is very important. Deep breathing may be the greatest way to make your lymphatic fluid move. And with all cases of cancer, if you have a fever, don't do anything to suppress it. I mean,
don't take aspirin?
No, when you go to medical school, the first thing you learn in immunology is there's a process of the immune system called leukotaxis. And that means that for every degree of temperature rise in your body, the speed at which your white blood cells, now these are your cancer-eating cells, can move through your immune system, through that white blood system, is doubled. That means at 104-degree fever, your white blood cells are moving 64 times faster than normal to get to that cancer. Do we want to slow that down?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. So forget your aspirins, forget your Tylenols, forget any drugs, antibiotics to reduce that fever. If you're burning up, great. And we'll talk in the cold sheet treatment how to protect yourself with high fever.
Anything in addition to that poultice and what we talked about in the herbal line that you need to emphasize for these women with breast cancer?
Yeah, don't forget to take your immune stimulators internally, your detoxification herbs.
Everything we've talked about
everything we've talked about before. Don't wear a bra. Bras do two major things. They cut off the circulation. Just the bra itself, the tightness of it will cut off the circulation to your breast. That lymphatic flow, you can impede it just by pressing your finger on your skin. Okay? When you get bit by a rattlesnake, they call it a lymphatic constrictor, and it just dents. You don't twist that handkerchief like the old cowboy movies. It just dents. To stop the lymphatic flow, a bra shuts that lymphatic flow right off. In fact, I think that one of the reasons, besides a high-fat diet, that we have more breast cancer today than ever before is bras. Plus, they're made out of synthetic material that's made from petrochemicals. How good can that be for your skin and your body?
One last thing on breast cancer. Are you saying that women should not wear bras?
Well, there's alternatives. There's silk bras. Certainly, there's a lot of cotton bras available. More and more manufacturers are making cotton bras now for women because the demand is out there.
One of the most, to me at least, frightening kinds of cancer is brain cancer because it's not something down another part of your body, like a breast you cut out, it's in your brain. It's right inside your head, your emotions, everything. Do you have any real hope to offer our readers?
Absolutely, and certainly I agree with you. I find that my patients that have had brain cancer are absolutely the most frightened, but I've had many people also recover from brain cancer that I've worked with.
Even on these programs, it's powerful enough to affect something that's inside that skull?
Absolutely. I had one 30-year-old young woman who had been married recently that shortly after the honeymoon started passing out. She was rushed to the hospital. She was diagnosed with malignant brain cancer. And when the surgeons cut the top of her head off, they said, oh shit, that's what they told me. And
it was that bad?
It was that bad. They said it looked like cottage cheese or cheese in her brain. They said even some of her brain cells looked like they had been melted. And they scooped a little bit of it out, and then they just said, forget it, and they closed her back up, and they told her to go home, and that was it. No hope.
That's awful.
No hope at all. And she came to me, you can imagine, totally depressed, totally think she was going to die, but her husband dragged her in, and we went to work. And there are a lot of therapies we'll talk about in a minute for brain cancer.
What was the outcome with her?
She had an absolute disappearance of the tumor, of the brain tumor itself and all the associated areas. She's absolutely fine now, has had no reoccurrence at all of any
How long did it
cancer.
take you to pull her out of the cliff?
The cliff was about 20 days where it was touch and go. For her full recovery, about 6 months. And she was a believer. She turned into a believer. A lot of times, some people turn into believers just when they hear that there's a ray of hope, when they hear that there's other people out there that have actually healed themselves of these diseases, because everybody thinks their case is the worst, or their disease is the worst, or, well, I couldn't do that, or that wouldn't happen to me.
Or they think nutrition might help cancer, but
Absolutely.
not something out on the edge like that.
Absolutely.
Have you had any other cases, or was she just one out of one alone?
No, she was a great case and had a great recovery, but I've had many others. And I'll talk a little bit about the specifics that I did with her too. One of the things that's most important when you have a brain tumor or a brain cancer or any brain problem, including, bad hearing, bad eyesight, whatever, we need more blood and oxygen to that area. And we've talked about that with the hot and cold.
Okay.
And again, the reason is you're putting these herbs and nutrients from your foods, your juices, into this bloodstream, but if it's not going to get up to your head, forget it.
So you use the hot and cold shower specifically targeted on the head?
Absolutely, right on the head. But on top of that, there are some specific herbs that increase the blood and oxygen flow to your brain.
What would they be?
One of the most popular today is called ginkgo biloba. That's the Latin name, but ginkgo is also the common name. And ginkgo has been proven in medical test after medical test to increase the blood and oxygen flow to the brain. And of course, this is going to heal any area to get more blood and oxygen.
Now, this plant is not that rare, is it?
No, it's a native of China, but now it grows as an ornamental in many cities in the United States.
And they could use that?
Yes, it's a terrific healer. A few years ago, there were 5.5 million prescriptions written for ginkgo in Germany. It's a top pharmaceutical drug over there.
There, but not here.
Yeah, we don't hear about it over here.
Okay.
We're in a blockade.
If you have a tree here, would you use the leaf or bark?
Absolutely, it's the leaf of ginkgo that you use. The ginkgo leaves, you can powder them and eat them. You can make an herbal tea out of them. You can make an extract. But there are other common herbs that are great for stimulating blood flow to the head.
Such as?
Rosemary. Rosemary is one of the greatest herbs for stimulating blood flow to the head.
So you use something like that in her case?
Oh, absolutely. It's part of what I call a brain tonic that I put together. But rosemary is wonderful for stimulating more blood flow to the head. And it grows as a garden herb anywhere in this country. Anybody can grow it in their garden. You can buy it at a garden store. Yeah, I think when I'm thinking of stimulating blood flow to the brain, there's only one herb that I know of that you can take that'll turn your face red.
What's that?
Cayenne pepper.
But I know people have taken it in capsules and never did anything for their face.
You have to put it in your mouth. So many of these herbs, when we talk about food, we always say, well, the first step to digestion is chewing your food thoroughly and mixing it with saliva. If we swallow our food whole, we don't digest it, right? So why would we swallow all these herbs whole? We need to put them in our mouth. We need to taste them. You can swallow all the cayenne capsules and you will not see your face turn red. You will not feel that sweating across under your eyes.
I've noticed that. I've taken up to 20 capsules a day and
Absolutely.
I don't notice anything.
You might get a stomach ache. You might notice it when it comes out.
Right.
But you won't notice it in your head. The way you do that, just eat a chili pepper. I had a man that had a brain tumor that was so aggressive that he started having grand mal seizures. Now, his wife would explain this to me. He would fall to the floor and start shaking, terrify the children and terrify his wife. He would lose control of his bowels. He would lose control of his bladder. He would foam at the mouth. He even bit the tip of his tongue off. His eyes were black when I first saw him, and he had a tumor about the size of a silver dollar.
And that was doing that damage.
Walnut. Yeah, but it was pressing on the right nerves, and it was causing, at first, they thought he had epilepsy, and they even did CAT scans and didn't find it. But after a while, they found it on the CAT scans, and he was having up to 2 grand mal seizures a day and numerous petite mals, they're called, seizures. He was absolutely losing his memory. He fell down the stairs at the house. He couldn't drive a car anymore. He had gotten into head-on collisions because he'd have seizures when he drove.
But by then they knew it was a tumor.
Yeah, they knew it was a tumor.
So why didn't they just go ahead and cut it out?
Well, they couldn't be operated on. Many brain tumors, like tumors that are pressing on nerves or that are on blood vessels or that are on the brain stem, cannot be removed by surgery. So the only hope for him was chemotherapy, some radiation, which is very dangerous when you think about radiating the brain.
Okay.
And also they put him on massive amounts of anti-seizure drugs like Dilantin, and that worked at first, but as the tumor grew, he could take Dilantin by the handful until he was taking so much the Dilantin was killing him, and it wasn't helping. He was having tremendous seizures, and of course at this point his wife, his family were terrified. He was terrified, but for any of your listeners and readers, they know the seizures almost worse on the people around than the people who's having...
Why? Because they see someone they love.
Oh, they see someone they love on the floor wetting themselves, fecal matter in their pants, biting their tongue, bleeding from the mouth.
And there's nothing they can do to stop it?
There's nothing they can do to stop it with the medication.
Okay, so they came to you.
Yeah, so they came to me, and this person was in horrible shape, and we started the work. He was an insurance salesman, and the first thing he had to do is stop his work. He had to really understand that this was going to be a full-time job. There was no fooling around here, no beating around the bush.
So they followed orders.
They followed orders. He was willing to do not only the herbs, but everything I said to get more blood flow to that head, and of course the detoxification herbs, the immune stimulant herbs, becoming a vegetarian, and all the things we talked about.
You told me it may sound minor, but you said you even have them elevate or change the bed a little bit.
Absolutely. We have to do, you have to think about it. The highest area of the body is the head. That means that it's one of the highest areas for the blood to pump to. The blood is going absolutely against gravity to pump to the head.
So what do you try to do?
We got to get more blood to that head. And one of the simple things that everybody can do is just elevate the foot of your bed. Under those two bedposts on your bed, put a book.
Something that trivial?
That's
right.
You won't even notice
in a serious case?
That's right. If you were to put a piece of plywood on that bed and set a marble on it, it would roll towards the head when you do that. And that means that for 8 hours every night, you're getting more blood pooling and going to that head.
And that little extra bit can make a difference in a case like that.
It's unbelievable. And eliminate your pillow. Take away that pillow. Maybe use a rolled up towel or a small piece of a cloth and roll it up and put it under your neck. Get that head down lower, get those feet up higher. And that's what you do 8 hours a night. You won't even notice it. And if you notice it at first a little, it'll go away. And then when you don't notice it, put another book under there. You can get your bed going like this. And during the day, use a slant board. If you don't have a slant board, lie on the floor and put your feet up on the couch. Relax. Get more blood to that head. And when you do that along with the cayenne and the ginkgo and the rosemary and other herbs to stimulate that blood flow, we're getting more blood to the head now.
Now you told me you had a school teacher that had it wasn't a silver dollar. It was totally massive.
She was a school teacher, and the first thing that she noticed, because she had her brain tumor, was she was having problems with her eyes, her eyesight. She went to the doctor to have a checkup. They suspected a tumor, and when they gave her a CAT scan, they absolutely couldn't believe it. Half her brain was taken up by this tumor. In fact, they said it was impossible for her to even be walking and talking and have any intellect, any mind, anything, even physical movement. They said it was impossible. She did. She was still teaching school, and this rocks the boat of medicine. Doctors get real scared when they see things like this. Obviously, they couldn't do surgery in this case because they didn't even know how she was functioning at this point. Again, suggested chemotherapy, some radiation treatment. But again, many people today who have seen their relatives burnt up, cut up, and die in the hands of medical doctors don't want to do that. So she had decided early on that she was going to do something natural. She didn't even believe that she could be well, but she thought that if it just could help her not die such a horrible death.
So when they came to you, they weren't looking at recovery.
Oh, they weren't looking at recovery.
They wanted you to help ease the way out?
In fact, her husband had left her already at this point. Sometimes we think that the people around us will stick by us in times of crisis, but but sometimes they get the can't handle it's too. And he was out of there. The husband had left. She had started to exhibit behavior that was aggressive. She was having fits of anger because, you know, who knows what this tumor was pressing on. And even her children had left home. They were of high school age and they moved out, and she was all alone. And
so she came to you, or with herself, by herself?
Absolutely. You know, that was when I first met her, was by herself.
What did she ask you to do for her, or expect you to do for her?
She just wanted me to make her death not to be too horrible. She just wanted me to have her die not writhing in pain and not butchered up. She was terrified at the thought of brain surgery, but the doctors didn't even want to do it. So we started on the programs. I believe everybody can be well. I believe
even her.
Everybody can be well. Everybody.
Did you do anything to get at that tumor?
Yes, the same programs that we talked about. Castor oil packs. I didn't mention that. We did castor oil packs on her head. We covered her head. This is messy, with castor oil.
Her whole head?
Her whole head. We put it even on her face. We put it down her neck and the back of her spine.
How'd you cover it up?
We put it on her liver with cloth.
Oh, down her spine, too.
That's right, and on her liver. We soaked towels in castor oil and put it on her. Now, you know, this is something I'll say right here. If you have an incurable disease and you want to heal yourself, you're going to ruin every towel, every sheet, every cloth in your house. You're going to stain things. You're going to ruin your mattress. Okay? You got to be willing to do that. What price do you put on your life? You can always get a new mattress, new towels, and new sheets. But what's in the book, what's in the manual that we cover, what's in all these treatments, you're going to stain and ruin everything in your house. Who cares? You'll be happy and healed living in a house with less towels, sheets, and furniture. That'll probably heal you. You'll have less housework to do.
Now, most people would think castor oil, what a joke. That's a quack thing.
Oh, castor oil.
How can it help something as deadly as brain?
Castor oil has been proven to break up congestions in the body. And we're not talking internally.
But cancer is not a congestion.
Well, it really is. You know, when you think about it, an area of your body would not degenerate and would not rot if your immune system in your blood was getting to that area. Sometimes the key cause behind all disease is that area getting blocked off from the rest of your body.
How long do you put it on? How long do you leave it on?
Okay.
What do they got to know if they're out home doing this?
Okay, good. It needs to be warm. You need to warm that
How
castor
warm?
oil. Body temperature at least. You can
Okay.
even get it a little bit hotter. And you need to apply it and leave it on. In fact, at first we had her putting it on, putting those towels on, and keeping that on all night long. In fact, we even found a way to tie a T-shirt around her head so her face was looking through the neck, and we tied a T-shirt. In fact, later we'll show that.
Okay.
And we put a T-shirt on her head soaked in castor oil, and she slept in that all night long.
How long before you knew you had turned a corner on her?
Well, this is a tough situation
That's real tough.
because most people, in order to see if they're improving, want to have more CAT scans, more MRIs, more X-rays, and we know that X-rays are dangerous. We're just finding out that even MRIs are toxic. We know that with CAT scans you have to inject radioactive dye into your bloodstream. This can't be good for you. So I always tell my patients, don't get re-examined, but they eventually do.
Okay.
They're just too curious. But I told her, don't go back to the doctors, don't go back to the hospitals.
Well, how long before she started being less angry or whatever?
She started noticing difference right away. She started noticing a difference immediately.
What does right away mean?
Within a couple days of beginning this program. She started, when you start this program, when you open those bowels, when you start cleaning that liver.
So she was doing all that too. We haven't mentioned it, but she was doing everything.
The whole program. She was doing the whole program. When you start doing that, you'll notice results in 24 hours. I look at it this way. Most of us, we have a disease. There's two reasons for that. The things that we do and the things that we don't do. So getting well is simply a matter of stopping doing the things that made you sick and begin new programs that'll make you well. And when you do that, you can notice the difference in 5 minutes. You can notice it immediately. We talked about...
Now, normally, natural healers who don't understand this always make good excuses like it took years to get well and it's going to take us years
we
for us
talked
to
about
help
the
you.
power of body work yesterday, and last night we squeezed each other's shoulders. How long did it take us to feel the difference?
I know, but
from
that's
that?
not cancer.
But it stimulated your circulation immediately.
Right.
You could feel immediate chills.
But
from
how
your
about
toes
her?
to your
How
head.
long on her before she knew, even with or without a test, that she was on her way back to life? When she told you, I don't think I'm going to die. How long did that happen?
It was about 2 weeks to where she said she didn't think she was going to die. Within 30 days, she had no knowledge herself of anything she could feel or think that she had anything wrong with her. She was off of all medications
No way to
at that
detect
point. No, and 6 months later, she did go in and have her checkups.
What on earth could they have said?
They even frightened her more. Listen to this. They said, well, the cancer's gone. They said, but there's a hole in your brain. You know, what are they trying to do? Depress her immune system even more? They said there's a hole in your brain. They said there was a space in her brain the size of an orange filled with fluid, and now they were worried about that. They wanted to go in and cut. You know, they had nothing positive to say about the experience
But didn't she say, I went to some natural healer?
I always tell my patients not to say that, or if they say that, never to mention my name.
Or you're going to have more battering rams at the door, right?
My doors, we don't even put all the pins in the hinges anymore. We don't even lock our doors anymore because, you know, we're afraid it's going to happen again. We've even had a second experience, like I talked about at first, but that time they knocked. They were nice enough to knock.